Hello my lovies and welcome to Divination Death Witch. I'm your host Rin, and today we're going to talk about Point Zero in Paris, the Fool's Journey, and how these can relate to your personal spiritual journey. I know these things might seem disconnected, but I will tie it all together, I promise. And this episode will have some homework for you if you choose to explore it. The inspiration for this episode came from a writing workshop I recently attended that was hosted by a dear friend of mine from college and his business partner. Maybe you're already familiar with Point Zero, or Point Zero in English, but I did not know about it until it was discussed in the Paris Inward workshop. It's a circle, sort of a medallion, in the ground right in front of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. It says Point Zero. And how it came to be is that when they were establishing roads in France, they designated this as the central location all distances would be measured from. There are a few superstitions or traditions, if you like to call them that instead, around Point Zero. The two that stuck with me during and after our discussions and writings in the workshop is that lovers who stand on Point Zero and kiss will have a love that endures time. And the other is that if you step on this spot before leaving Paris, it will ensure that you will return again someday. We then took time to write about our personal Point Zeros and what they mean or are to us as individuals. Immediately, I thought of numerology and how zero is rarely used, but what it is the number of infinite potential, and it also represents our connection to Source. From Point Zero, all things are possible. From Point Zero in Paris, you can set out in any direction, pursue any adventure you like. It leads to anywhere and everywhere, but only if you are willing to acknowledge that you are standing on Point Zero. Choose an adventure or direction which to pursue, and then, perhaps hardest of all, take the leap of faith off of Point Zero to actively pursue your chosen course. The Fool in Tarot is also number 0, and that with the idea of taking the leap of faith off of Point Zero reminded me of the Fool's Journey in Tarot and how both Point Zero in Paris and the Fool's Journey connect to our own spiritual journeys. We each find ourselves at a metaphorical Point Zero more than once in our lives, and if we're being honest, most of us take more than one Fool's Journey in our lives as well. Before we can discuss the Fool's Journey, we need to ask, what does the Fool card mean, and who is the Fool? In my personal tarot practice, I often forget that there are readers that view the Fool in a more negative or challenging light. Yes, it can be interpreted to mean foolishness, lack of forethought, and immaturity. But is the Fool really those things? He and I will be using the masculine pronouns through this episode because the main deck we will be looking at depicts the Fool as a male, but there are decks out there that depict the Fool differently. But yes, he certainly can be all of that. Those absolutely can be valid interpretations of this card. But that is not the relationship I have with the Fool overall. And maybe that's because I've lived long enough to have a few Point Zeros in my life. I've lived through the Fool's Journey a few times over. Let's take a closer look at this card and really tear it apart. It does very much matter what deck you use for this particular exercise because different decks portray the Fool differently depending on the time period it was created and on the creator's relationship with this card. For this episode, we're going to specifically look at the Fool from the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, which was originally published in 1909. Why? Well, it is often considered the most recognizable deck, and if we're being honest, a vast majority of decks today are set up in the Rider-Waite-Smith system. It is important to note that Waite and Pixie made a lot of changes to tarot. So if you look at the Fool from, say, the Visconti tarot, originally created in the 15th century, you will notice drastic differences. The Fool from the Visconti tarot, at least from my perspective, embodies those less desirable meanings we discussed a moment ago. The Rider-Waite-Smith, on the other hand, while it can retain those earlier meanings, embodies a lot of other symbols. If you have a Rider-Waite-Smith deck handy or a Rider-Waite-Smith clone deck handy, you may want to pull out the Fool so that you can look at it while we discuss its symbolism. If not, you can join the Haunt Discord server, and I'll post some photos of different Fools that you can look at while you listen. I do not, for the life of me, know why, but links aren't showing up as links in the description box of the Divination Death Witch episodes. I have been trying for at least 2 weeks now to figure this out and fix it, but nothing is working. If you want to use my link tree to find me around the web, you'll need to copy and paste it into your search bar, but you'll also need to add the HTTPS bit in the front of it, because even though I have the complete link in what I set up behind the scenes, it refuses to show up in what you, the audience, sees. Just like I've made the word Linktree a hyperlink 1,000 times, but it doesn't show up as one in what you are seeing. So I'm going to start putting my YouTube tag in the description box as well. You should be able to copy and paste that into YouTube, and then you can find the YouTube exclusive content that I do and working links to my Linktree, Discord, etc. But let's start looking at the symbolism in the Fool card. More often than not, I interpret the Fool in a positive light, even though this energy can be challenging or uncomfy. The Fool is about new beginnings, but we are creatures of habit, and even positive change can cause us stress and discomfort. The Fool is also taking a leap of faith, as he's seen poised to step off of a cliff, depicted in a way where we do not know if he's stepping into the abyss and his downfall and demise, or if there is a safe place for him to land. In one hand, the Fool carries a white rose, meant to symbolize love and spiritual purity. In his cap is a red feather to symbolize determination. The Fool has made up his mind. He's going to pursue this path, this leap of faith from the cliff that is point zero, no matter the risks. The Fool only carries with him what he can fit in his little knapsack. I've heard readers who have a more negative spin on the Fool say that the sack he carries is filled with his vices, but in my practice, I don't find that to be the case. I'm not saying it's wrong, I just don't find it to be the case. Rather, I see the knapsack as being filled with the essentials, or the things most important to and treasured by the Fool. On a metaphorical or spiritual level, to me, this is a visual representation of one of the things I teach often, which is that you want to take the lessons, the wisdom from your past with you into your present and future, but leave the past itself behind. You take the essence, but not the thing itself. And I feel like that's what fits in the knapsack. His staff or stick represents the Fool having the ability to traverse whatever rough terrain he might encounter. Spiritual teachers will often tell you that you already have within you everything you need to navigate the difficult times in life. You might need a tool like the Fool staff, but you have the ability within you to find, gather, and use tools and navigate your way through challenges. The staff can also be used for other purposes as well, like making it easier for you to carry with you what you need, as the Fool is depicted using it to carry his knapsack. If the need should arise, the staff can also help the Fool to protect himself from danger. The staff and the knapsack show us that the Fool may not be as foolhardy as some claim. Maybe he isn't rushing headlong without any vestige of a plan after all. These items rather show some level of foresight or preparation for the trip ahead. The fool may not know exactly where he's headed, or maybe he knows the direction he wishes to head in, but he doesn't know what the journey will entail. Still, he has given some thought to this trip and has made some basic preparations. He may not know all of the details, but he's not completely unprepared. The cliff itself represents the unknown, or, as I said earlier, a leap of faith. The cliff is point zero, a place of pure potential and from which all things are possible. Then we come to the dog, and you will hear a lot of different readers give very different interpretations of what the dog on the Fool card symbolizes. Most modern decks do include a dog or some animal. I have a couple that have a cat instead of a dog on the Fool card, and what animal as well as how it is depicted interacting with the Fool may color your interpretations of the Fool. The Visconti Tarot has no animal with the Fool. The Marseille depicts an ambiguous animal. Is it a cat? Is it a dog? Is it something else? Is it running the Fool out of town? Or is it the Fool's companion? The guidebook for my Marseille deck, and I do only own one Marseille deck, says that it is any and all of these. Any of those options is possible. It's up to the reader what it is or isn't. Waite, on the other hand, was very clear about the animal being a dog and exactly what he's up to on the card. Now, if you've followed me, you know I am not a fan of Arthur Waite, but what he has to say is actually relevant in this case. According to Waite, the dog is attacking the Fool, nipping at his heels, causing the Fool to be propelled forward with a lack of caution to where he is going. Spoiler alert, sometimes we do need to propel ourselves forward with a certain quote-unquote lack of caution. This is why I interpret the dog as being what no longer serves us, and as such is the motivation for stepping off of that cliff. If we hold on to what no longer serves us, we can come to a point of stagnation, and often we inevitably come to a point where the status quo can no longer remain the status quo. Call it human psychology or the universe intervening, but we reach a tipping point where we can no longer resist change. Something has got to give. The cliff is point zero, and the dog is what motivates us to take that first step off of point zero and actually begin our new journey. Maybe that dog is us recognizing that something in our lives is no longer serving us, and so we make the conscious choice to pack up and start the journey before the dog can do more than nip at our heels. Or maybe sometimes the dog is fear of being devoured by what it is in our life that no longer serves us, and thus through that fear we are propelled into something new. Either way, the dog, as I see it, represents what is motivating us to actually take the leap of faith, and given that humans have a hard time with change, it's often some level of discomfort or dissatisfaction that pushes us to begin our new journey. It doesn't always have to be, though. Sometimes we just know there's something on the horizon we want to go for. But a lot of times we change because we have to. There are those who see the animal on the Fool card as the Fool's companion, but a spiritual companion, as each of us have to walk our path on our own. Others may walk a short while or a long while with us, but as far as humans go, no one makes our full journey with us from the very first point zero of birth until our final breath in this life. Spiritual companions, though, some of those can make that full journey with us. In the Shadowland Tarot in particular, the creator really leans towards the spiritual companion interpretation, with a cat that is helping the Fool find his direction. The dog in the Cute Chibi Tarot and the cat in the Cozy Witch Tarot also are depicted in ways that make them seem much more like spiritual companions and less like the precipitating event for change. While Waite is very clear about the dog and what he is up to in the Rider-Waite-Smith, different decks do leave it open to other interpretations, and even if you read with a Rider-Waite-Smith deck or clone, you can decide how you view the dog. Maybe sometimes it is the motivation for change, and other times it represents a spiritual companion, depending on the reading. As I say, there isn't one right way to read the tarot. There is my way, there is your way, but as for the one true right way, it simply does not exist. There is simply what is right for you as an individual reader. Now that we've discussed the Fool, what is the Fool's journey? The Fool's journey can be both mundane and spiritual. We come to a Fool moment, or a point zero, when we reach a point in life where we know something has to change, or we desperately desire something new, where we need to take that first step in a new beginning. Life has become stagnant, or something in our life is no longer serving us to a point where change, through embracing the Fool in point zero, is the only way forward. If you are interested in embracing the energy of the Fool and finding the courage to take the leap of faith from your point zero, I highly encourage you to read Brené Brown's book, Daring Greatly. She talks about how if you really want to live life, you have to be willing to show up in the arena and risk getting your ass kicked, just like the Fool is willing to step off the cliff. The title came from something Teddy Roosevelt said, which was, quote, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." End quote. To embody the energy of the Fool and to take the leap of faith is to dare greatly. The critics may call it foolish, but in the end, no matter the outcome, at least you can say you lived daring greatly, but most importantly, that you lived. The characters or cards of the major arcana, of which there are 22, each represents an archetype. When talking about the Fool's journey, academic and ordered sense, the Fool sets out on his journey encountering each of the other 21 archetypes in order, learning about their specific subject before moving on to the next. The Magician teaches him that he has everything within him that he needs in order to manifest his goals. The High Priestess helps him discover both physical and spiritual worlds on a deeper level. The Empress teaches him receptivity and nurturing. The Emperor teaches him how to take action and to have confidence. The Hierophant teaches him the structure of society and culture. When he comes to the Lovers, they can teach him how to make choices in life, as well as how to find his balance between the masculine and feminine energies within himself, as well as how to work with others. The Chariot teaches him how to use willpower and discipline to move towards his goals. When it comes to Strength, my interpretation of this archetype is that this one teaches the Fool to tame his inner demons, vices, and bad habits, but this archetype can also teach the Fool how to find his inner strength. The Hermit teaches him to go within and examine himself as well as life, the universe, and everything. Then the fool learns from the Wheel of Fortune that everything happens in its own time or according to divine timing, depending on how you view the Wheel of Fortune. Justice teaches him that the universe will always bring balance in the end. From the Hanged Man, the fool learns to look at the world from different perspectives. For some of you on your fool's journey, death may teach you about physical death. But more traditionally, this archetype teaches the fool that in order to progress and grow, an ego death is necessary. Temperance teaches the fool to be patient and find balance after their ego death, and perhaps a bit of internal alchemy. The fool is forced to examine how he holds himself back or blocks his own blessings through the archetype of the devil. The tower crumbles away what is not serving the fool so that he can build the next part of his journey on a solid foundation. The star teaches the fool hope and can help him find direction. The fool examines his fears and subconscious with the moon. The sun teaches him about his soul's purpose and how to shine his light for others. Judgment teaches him how to actually work his soul's purpose, which he learned through the help of the sun. And finally, we have the World, who teaches the fool about completing the cycle, which will put the fool at a new point zero, where, when he is ready, he can set out on another journey and do it all again. Well, when we talk about or teach the fool's journey, we talk about it in the numerical order we see the cards in the major arcana. In life, the journey from point A to point B is rarely ever linear or as the crow flies. We often take a much more winding way, and we can often find ourselves revisiting points we've already been to. Meaning that in life, as you take your fool's journey, it's not likely that it's going to look as neat and orderly as what I described. And you're likely going to visit more than a few archetypes more than once to really get the lessons down. This whole idea of point zero in the fool's journey, and whether or not we choose to embrace it, because we do have free will after all, reminds me of one of my favorite poems by Shel Silverstein, Magic Carpet. You have a magic carpet that will whiz you through the air, to Spain or Maine or Africa if you just tell it where. So will you let it take you where you've never been before, or will you buy some drapes to match and use it on your floor? Will you embrace the energy of the fool and his journey, or will you stick with the devil you know? Will you grow and expand? Will you take the risk of getting in the arena? I tell my children that if they try something and it doesn't work out, even if it goes horribly wrong, the only true failure is never bothering to try in the first place. That's the fool, not knowing how it will turn out, but taking the journey anyway. Some will call it foolish. Some will call it brave. And just my standard reminder that bravery isn't the absence of fear, but rather taking action despite being afraid. You and I could probably talk about these concepts for quite some time. We have a lot here that we could go through. We all have point zeros in our lives, and we are all afforded the opportunity to pursue our own fool's journey. But let me wrap up this episode with some exercises that you can do to reflect on how these ideas apply to you and your spiritual journey. I am intending these to be journal exercises so you can write out answers in essay form, create art as your journal entries, use a bullet journal format, write poems or songs, or if you don't like to journal in any way, shape, or form, you can just quietly reflect on each point. Prompt number 1. What has been the most significant point zero in your life up to this point? Was it a person, a place, a situation, or something else? Why was this point zero so significant to you? Prompt number 2. When you were at that point zero, who or what was the dog that propelled you into taking that first step off of your point zero towards your new beginning? If your dog wasn't a precipitating event, but rather a spiritual companion, what type of spiritual companion was it? Did they offer you guidance, or were they just a comforting presence? Were they a bit of both or something else? Prompt number 3. Are you at a point zero in your life right now? If so, what does your current point zero look like? What of the infinite possibilities before you do you want to set out towards? Prompt number 4. If you are currently on a fool's journey, what is in your knapsack? Are there things in your knapsack that you might need to discard? Are there things that you may need to collect to carry in your knapsack? Prompt number 5. This prompt will require a tarot deck. If you are the fool on the journey, which archetype's lessons can help you the most currently? You can draw for this a couple of different ways. Either way, you'll be using the majors only for this. So if you have a majors only deck, you can go ahead and grab it, or you can separate the majors out of a full deck to give yourself a 22 card majors only deck. Method 1. Shuffle the majors only and then draw one card. You can draw the top card, the shadow card, or fan them out and pull, whichever card feels right to you, however you want to select the card. This is the archetype whose lessons can most help you at this time. If you draw the Fool himself, then that means it's time to find your point zero and set out on a new journey. Method 2. Shuffle the majors only. Once you feel they are properly shuffled, begin turning over cards and counting them as you go. Stop when you find the Fool. What number was he? That is the number of the Major Arcana card, which depicts the archetype whose lessons can help you most right now. For example, if the Fool was the 6th card in your Majors Only deck, then the Lovers would be your archetype. If the Fool happens to be the 22nd card, the last one you turn over, then it means the Fool is your card, and it's time to find your point zero and set out on a new journey. After you've done this, what archetype did you get? Do you see a connection between this card and where you are on your path right now? If so, how does it connect? What can you learn from this archetype at this moment? What are some concrete ways or action steps you can take to help you to learn this archetype's lessons and apply them to where you are right now on your journey? Prompt 6. This prompt will require a full 78 card tarot deck. You can ask the cards one of 2 questions for this. You can ask what you need to know right now about your point zero or your Fool's journey, whichever is relevant to you. Or you can ask what actions would be beneficial for you to take from your point zero or your place on your Fool's journey. Again, whichever applies to you. Shuffle your deck until you feel it's ready, and then find the Fool card in the deck. The card before the Fool and the card after the Fool answer whichever question you chose to ask. Write about how these cards answer your question and how you can apply them to your journey. Do they offer you any inspiration? The last prompt, number 7. If you are a tarot reader or collector of decks, what deck is your favorite Fool card from? Why do you love this depiction of the Fool above others? What symbols does your favorite Fool contain? Does it have an animal? If so, what animal is it and what does it symbolize? Do you see this Fool as immature and foolish, or does he exhibit some common sense as he sets out on his journey? How do you interpret this specific Fool card? What is your relationship with this Fool? I hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. Remember that all episodes of Divination Death Witch, which are archived, are over on the Spirit Tarot and Healing Arts YouTube channel. So if you are looking for older episodes that are no longer on the Podbean app, you can find them over there. You can find me around the web by using my link tree, which is, as we discussed, in the description box for this episode, or you can find me over on YouTube by using my YouTube tag. Don't forget to join the Discord. The intention of the Discord is to create a nice little spiritual community. I'm planning down the road to start doing some lives over in the Discord, so be sure to check that out, and any photos associated with Divination Death Witch episodes will be with the posting of the episode over in the Discord as well. Until I see you again, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.